My phone vibrated, jolting me awake at 11:17 p.m. A message from my boss, Tyler. Don't come in tomorrow. No salutation, no emoji. Just a period, like a full stop to my career. I typed 4 words I'd rehearsed for weeks. Don't open your inbox. Send. I set a 10-minute timer and turned the phone face down, letting it hum against the granite. For the past 8 months, I had quietly watched Tyler manipulate numbers, favor vendors, and cut corners under the guise of efficiency. I'd raised concerns in meetings, in private emails, on casual hallway stops, but every time I was told, handle it offline. Now, offline wasn't enough. Documentation wasn't enough. Tonight, it was time to act. The apartment was quiet. Rain streaked the windows, tapping a slow rhythm against the glass. On the kitchen counter sat a neatly stacked pile. My badge, a printed handover I'd rewritten 3 times to get the tone neutral yet precise, and a small folder labeled Audit Notes. Everything was ready. Every invoice, every time-stamped approval, every Slack message showing when overtime was ignored had been copied, hashed, and sent to a secure repository I'd set up under legal guidance. Immutable. Untouchable. I opened the fridge and grabbed last night's leftover pasta, eating it standing up. Each forkful punctuated the silence. I wasn't angry. Not really. Anger is loud. I wanted clean, documented precision. I wanted every move I'd made to speak louder than words. The timer ticked down. 9 minutes. I glanced at my laptop. A scheduled email awaited dispatch to 3 recipients: the CEO, the audit committee, and external legal counsel. No commentary, no personal notes, just hard evidence. By the time the emails landed, there would be no plausible deniability. Not for Tyler, not for anyone complicit in the numbers I documented. The phone buzzed. A call from Tyler. I ignored it. A second buzz. Still, I didn't answer. I knew his type. Control was a drug, and he was already shaking. Another buzz. I flipped the phone. A text now. You're making a mistake. 1 word I typed in reply. No. Then I set the phone back down. 7 minutes. I washed the pasta bowl, wiped the counter, and checked the folder one last time. The first packet contained a simple table: vendor invoices, internal approvals, flagged discrepancies. The second packet had a narrative timeline showing exactly when Tyler had overridden approvals and how my team had been forced to work late to cover for his shortcuts. The third packet had my note: scheduled release, no destructive changes, all access rotated, clean, precise, irrefutable. The phone vibrated again. Unknown number. Urgent. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The emails had already been scheduled. The plan was in motion. Outside, a car splashed through a puddle. A television flickered in the building across the street. The world moved on, oblivious, while my actions silently set the boardroom stage. 6 minutes. I zipped my backpack. Laptop, printed handover, badge, pens. Nothing else. Silence enveloped me as I thought about every late night, every team call at 2 a.m., every forced patch that covered vendor mistakes. I wasn't retaliating out of spite. I was stopping the bleeding, and tonight, the clock was on my side. 5 minutes. Tyler called again. Another text. You can fix this. I didn't reply. I'd already fixed it, in the only way that mattered, by making sure the truth had legs. I slid the envelope with my badge into the backpack and double-checked the door lock. Crisis makes people panic at thresholds. I was calm, deliberate. 4 minutes. My email to legal went out. Subject line: document preservation and access handover. I CC'd my attorney. Each word measured, each action defensible. This wasn't drama. This was procedure. The timer ticked under 3 minutes. I stood by the window, rain dripping down the glass, watching my reflection. Exhausted, focused, composed, ready. 2 minutes. A voicemail preview popped up. Amanda from the audit committee. Please call. I typed back. Emails are in flight. Following protocol. Received. Perfect. The first domino had already fallen. 1 minute. I crouched to tie my shoes, checked the backpack straps, and let myself breathe. 10 minutes would end with a soft ping, signaling dispatch. Then everything would begin to unfold naturally. I powered off the lamp, let the apartment go dark, and waited. Timer. Ping. Email sent. Outside, the city hummed in rain-slicked silence. In my apartment, the quiet was electric. Every number, every report, every email, already in motion. Tyler's control was a phantom now. 10 minutes later, the world would catch up, and I would be steps ahead. Invisible, but unstoppable. The sunlight hit the apartment in streaks of gold, bouncing off the wet streets outside. I hadn't slept more than 30 minutes since sending the emails, but fatigue was a quiet companion compared to anticipation. I dressed quickly in a truckle blazer and dark jeans, laptop bag slung over my shoulder. My reflection in the hallway mirror looked sharp, precise, the version of myself that Tyler had tried to break for months. The timer on my watch ticked towards 7:45 a.m., and I stepped into the rain-soaked streets of downtown Chicago, each footstep deliberate, each breath measured. I arrived at the office building, umbrella dripping onto the polished granite, and watched through the glass doors as the first waves of employees arrived. Phones were buzzing, muted conversations ricocheting in tight circles. I caught glimpses of managers muttering frantically, hands hovering over keyboards, eyes wide. Tyler's usual confident swagger was replaced by a frantic energy that radiated like static through the lobby. At the security desk, Carlos, a grizzled man who had seen 5 CEOs come and go, barely looked up. "Morning," he muttered. I flashed my badge through the scanner. Red, then yellow, then red again. Carlos shrugged. "HR has been blowing up the line. Want me to call?" "No need," I said, setting my bag on the counter. The envelope with the handover and badge was already there. "Just let them know I'm here." He raised an eyebrow but didn't question. "You sure this isn't going to get messy?" "Messy is someone else's problem," I replied, walking toward the elevator. The familiar metallic hum filled the cab, broken only by the soft beep of the floors passing. I pressed the 12th floor, our corporate hub. I didn't feel fear, not really. I felt the weight of inevitability. Tyler had been playing a long game of deception. Tonight, someone else would finish it. At the top floor, the lobby was a flurry. Phones lit up like fireworks, messages pinged in clusters, managers clutched papers like life preservers. I caught glimpses of IT specialists hovering over a server terminal, their faces tight. One of them glanced up, recognition sparking in her eyes, but she didn't say a word. I made my way to conference room B, the neutral space for HR, audits, and sensitive transitions. Inside, Sarah from HR was already seated, phone pressed to her ear. Legal counsel, a woman named Claire, tapped notes into her laptop, expression precise and controlled. Both looked like professionals who had been handed a sudden puzzle that didn't yet have a solution. "Morning," Sarah said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You were told not to come in today, correct?" "Yes, I'm here to finalize access and handoff as documented." I placed the envelope on the table. "Check your inbox. Subject line, document preservation and access handover." Claire scrolled through her laptop, eyes narrowing as she digested the packets. Sarah's lips parted slightly, a breath caught. "Did you automate this yourself?" "No. Pre-approved by outside counsel. All procedures followed per policy 914, hash verification attached." Outside the narrow blinds, Tyler strode past, phone in hand, face crimson. He didn't see me. His usual air of control had evaporated, replaced with the raw panic of someone realizing their house of cards was shaking. Sarah exhaled, stepping out briefly to speak into her phone. Claire stayed seated, eyes locked on the documents. "You've worked here how long?" she asked softly. 6 years. "And this material?" "Collected since my first compliance flags were ignored. Every discrepancy, every override, documented in real time." Claire nodded, expression unreadable. "You understand, this will move fast." "I do. I hope so." Through the thin blinds, I could hear Tyler, low, clipped, attempting authority but failing. His voice bounced off glass and steel, context, control, misdirection, tools that had always worked, now meaningless. The elevator doors opened, and 2 board members appeared, escorted by the CEO, a man whose calm presence masked a mind already rearranging pieces on the chessboard. Tyler froze when he saw me, a subtle pause in his gait betraying him. Phones were already out, Slack messages stacked like dominoes. The CEO gestured toward the conference room table. "Morning, Claire, Sarah," he said without turning. "We'll begin." Tyler's chair creaked as he sat, jaw set. His laptop was open, logs ready, but the moment of control had already passed. I stepped closer to the screen. Column A, vendor invoices. Column B, internal purchase orders. Column C, variance between projected and delivered work. Column D, access timestamps cross-check with general ledger. The pattern repeats every other week. Overbilling averages 15%, routed through unregistered sub-vendors. The CEO tilted his head slightly. "True?" "Yes, verified against system logs, all timestamps immutable, every override traced." Tyler's face tightened, a small, forced smile. "Integration hiccups? Misunderstandings. can be clarified. I placed another page on the table. Hiccups include forced PTO overrides, all approvals processed under your credentials, timestamped, logged, immutable. I tapped my own digital signature. See here? January 14th, 2:17 a.m., during PTO. System logs verify action originated from your account. The room went quiet. The board member's eyes widened slightly. Tyler's face drained of color. Do you have what you need, Claire? Yes, sir. Chain of custody confirmed. Tyler sprang from his chair. You don't understand. These files can be manipulated. This is sabotage. Sit down, the CEO said evenly. Tyler froze, words failing him. You set yourself up. I simply followed procedure. A dull silence fell. Every document, every note, every timestamp. Tyler's control was gone. Phones buzzed, security isolated terminals, and whispers ricocheted across the floor. The office, built for efficiency, now moved like a body realizing it was bleeding internally. I watched Tyler's panic spread silently. No one had to yell, no one had to cry. His empire of fear collapsed, methodically. By 10:30 a.m., the first dominoes had fallen. HR began reinstating policies, legal drafted emergency memos, and the board convened for an immediate review. I stepped back, arms folded, breathing steady. My team's safety, the integrity of the systems, my own procedural diligence, they had all arrived exactly where they needed to be. And Tyler, the man who thought fear was control, was now a spectator to his own unraveling. A ping from my phone. Lucas. They're isolating him. Systems flagged. You okay? I'm fine. Focus on work. You're safe. Outside, rain continued to drizzle over the streets of Chicago. From my vantage point in Conference Room B, I could see the storm mirrored in the chaos below. But unlike the city, I was calm, methodical, steps ahead. And for the first time in months, the air felt lighter, breathable, charged with quiet anticipation of what came next. By 11 a.m., the building felt like a storm trapped inside glass walls. Phones were ringing nonstop, Slack notifications pinged like gunfire, and managers darted through hallways clutching folders as if the papers themselves held the power to patch reality. I stayed in Conference Room B, hands folded over the laptop bag at my feet, watching the chaos unfold like a conductor observing a symphony of panic. Tyler's office was already sealed. Security had blocked access, but his muttered curses carried faintly through the thin walls. The low hum of emergency server protocols was audible in bursts, alerts, locks, and network snapshots running automatically. Every move I'd scheduled the night before had triggered exactly as planned. Tyler, my junior analyst, appeared at the door, eyes wide. Alex, they're saying Tyler's locked out of everything. Email, internal systems, the board is reviewing vendor contracts as we speak. Good, I said, voice calm. Keep your team focused. Nothing unscheduled, no heroics. Just follow protocol. He hesitated. You don't feel anything. I looked at him, soft but steady. I feel accountability. The rest is for them to process. Inside the boardroom, Tyler had been escorted in by 2 security officers, his jacket damp from the rain outside. He tried to speak over the room, voice cracking. This is premeditated. You're going to ruin me. The CEO, calm and unflinching, held up a hand. Sit. Let's review the facts. Every packet I'd sent, every time-stamped override, every flag discrepancy was projected on the screen. The external counsel mirrored it for the board. The numbers undeniable. Tyler's protests fell like dry leaves against glass. You've been collecting data for, 6 months? 8, I corrected. Every flagged incident, every PTO override, every late-hour entry documented in real time. A murmur passed through the room. The CFO leaned back, rubbing his eyes. You knew this would end up here? Yes, I said. I followed policy. I documented. I didn't manipulate systems. I preserved integrity. Tyler's lips trembled. He pointed at me. You set me up. You set yourself up, I said, voice even. The silence was heavier than any scream. Outside the conference room window, a pulsating crime scene spectacle appeared through the blinds, rippling across the floor. Some laughed quietly, some shook their heads in disbelief. The building itself seemed to pulse with realization that the person they feared most was human, vulnerable, and, thanks to my documentation, accountable. A knock at the door. Sarah from HR stepped in. You'll need to come upstairs. The board wants to review the materials in person. I nodded, sliding my laptop into my bag. Understood. I'm ready. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. Each floor ticked by, the hum of the cab and the occasional vibration of the building blended into a rhythm of anticipation. At the top floor, the door opened into a conference suite that smelled faintly of coffee, printer toner, and anxiety. The board members were already seated, a mix of curiosity, anger, and disbelief on their faces. Tyler's chair sat empty at the end of the table, security stationed outside, silent, unmoving. I stepped in, hands folded, calm, and placed the folder on the table. Everything you need is here. Verified, documented, timestamped. External counsel mirrored all data. Eyes flicked from the spreadsheets to the projections on the screen. Board members muttered quietly, scanning evidence I had carefully curated. Tyler's protests fell like dry leaves against glass. The finance officer finally spoke. You saw patterns that we missed. You followed procedure, and you preserved integrity. Why did you wait? Because no one would listen until the evidence became unavoidable. Tonight, tomorrow, it doesn't matter. Integrity doesn't expire. A brief silence fell. Then one of the board members leaned forward. We need an immediate audit of all vendor contracts. IT is instructed to block unauthorized access. HR will oversee compliance. Tyler is suspended until notice further. The dominoes had fallen. One by one, the pieces moved exactly where I had set them. Every action, every precaution, every meticulous note had created a chain reaction, and I was still standing, quiet, composed, untouched by the panic around me. Lucas's text came through again. They're calling Tyler's vendors. First reactions are, wow. I didn't reply. I just sat, folded my hands, and watched. The chaos was no longer theoretical. It was real, and I had a front row seat. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. The city glimmered, wet and cold. Inside, the room pulsed with the realization that control could be challenged, and now, finally, accountability had arrived. By mid-afternoon, the office floor had transformed into something unrecognizable. Phones buzzed incessantly, Slack exploded with notifications, and managers rushed past each other like storm-driven leaves. Tyler's name was whispered, muttered, even feared. His empire of fear was dissolving, and the building seemed to sense it. I remained calm in my seat, laptop closed, hands folded. My inbox pinged rhythmically, alerts from IT, flagged emails from HR, and updates from the board. Everything moved according to the schedule I'd set the night before. The chaos outside my door was a predictable rhythm now, one I could watch without panic. Lucas appeared, slightly pale. Alex, PR just called. Tyler's clients are questioning invoices. Social channels are getting flagged. They're asking if we want to release a statement. I leaned back. Not yet. Let the board finish the audit. Any premature statement risks perception over fact. Focus on internal compliance. No heroics. He nodded, a mix of admiration and anxiety in his eyes. You really thought of all of this? Yes, every email, every timestamp, every backup, every contingency. Chaos isn't luck, it's preparation. Meanwhile, upstairs, Tyler was attempting to salvage something, anything. Security had already confiscated his laptop and phone. Internal IT had blocked his accounts, yet he roamed the halls muttering instructions no one could execute. The desperation in his movements contrasted sharply with the calm order I had cultivated below. The board convened in an emergency session, reviewing vendor contracts, system logs, and compliance reports. Legal counsel sat beside me, whispering updates. They're shocked. Tyler's been running these overages for months, and your documentation is airtight. I didn't need a reassurance. I already knew. A ping from Lucas. He's calling the media. I straightened. Let him. He has no control. PR will manage the narrative, and we follow procedure. No improvisation. Minutes later, our corporate communications director arrived, laptop in hand. We need to prep a statement. Tyler attempted unauthorized outreach to clients, vendors, and external partners. We confirm internal audit ongoing. Any leaks, handle immediately. Keep the messaging tight. No speculation. I nodded. Exactly. Facts only. No emotion. Document everything. Chain of custody maintained. Meanwhile, Tyler's attempts to contact the CEO and board directly were intercepted. Security blocked his calls, IT isolated terminals, and HR was issuing formal warnings for any unsanctioned communications. He was frantic, pacing in circles that led nowhere. I watched the scene from my desk, calm. Every step Tyler took pushed the dominoes further. The board was consolidating the evidence, PR was drafting statements, and IT ensured nothing could be manipulated. The office was a perfect storm, and I was at the eye. Lucas's text came again. The board is asking for a timeline of your involvement. Want me to draft it? Yes. Include exact timestamps, actions taken, and links to supporting documentation. Keep tone neutral, procedural, no adjectives. Let the evidence speak. By 3 p.m., the first external calls from vendors came in. Clients asked questions about past invoices, delivery schedules, and overages. I responded calmly, providing exactly what was documented, no more, no less. Each reply reinforced the integrity of the process and exposed Tyler's mismanagement without ever mentioning his name. Upstairs, Tyler had finally been corralled into a small room by security, his phone and laptop seized. His protests were muffled, frustrated, powerless. The board had taken control of the narrative, isolating every risk. I leaned back in my chair, fingers lightly drumming the tabletop. The storm outside reflected the storm inside the company, both chaotic, unpredictable, but inside the conference room, calm prevailed. Every system, every backup, every policy I'd followed ensured that control was not lost. Tyler's panic was visible, palpable. My calmness was strategic, deliberate, unwavering. Lucas peeked in again. Alex, PR just confirmed. They're framing Tyler's actions as unauthorized, internal review ongoing. Clients are reassured, nothing leaked. Good, I said. Keep monitoring. No one leaves protocol, everything documented. I watched the office floor, employees moving like ants, adjusting, whispering, scanning. The tension was palpable, but fear was replaced with awareness. People began realizing that integrity could challenge fear and that chaos, when anticipated, could be controlled. Another ping. Board wants you in 20 for final review. Tyler's suspension and communications will be formalized. I closed my laptop, straightened my blazer, and exhaled. The room outside still pulsed with storm energy, but my corner of it was silent, deliberate, clean. Every move I had made, the preparation, the documentation, the careful timing had brought us to this moment. Tyler had unleashed chaos for years. Tonight, his own empire of fear had become his undoing. I glanced at Lucas. Get the team ready, procedure intact, documentation complete. This isn't over, but control is ours. He nodded, a mixture of relief and awe in his expression. You really thought of all of this? I smiled faintly. Everything that matters. The rest will take care of itself. The storm outside had passed, but the firestorm inside the company had only just begun, and I was standing at the center of it, calm, precise, untouchable. By 8 a.m. the next morning, the building felt different, heavier, tighter, like air compressed before a storm. Employees whispered in hallways, heads turning as security blocked Tyler's usual path. The whispers weren't fear anymore, they were realization. The empire of intimidation he'd built was gone, replaced by the quiet hum of accountability. I entered the building, badge in hand, calm. The security guard, Terry, gave a subtle nod. Morning, he said, voice low. Morning, I replied, not needing more. Upstairs, the board and legal counsel waited in a large conference room. Tyler had been escorted into a small side office, isolated, cut off, powerless. Security flanked the doors. My laptop bag was light. Everything I needed was already documented and verified. I placed it on the table, hands folded. The CEO looked up. Alex, thank you for coming in. Today, we finalize actions regarding Tyler's suspension, vendor audits, and internal compliance. Legal and HR will need your input. I nodded. All documentation is time-stamped, verified, and mirrored. Access logs, audit trails, vendor contracts, everything is ready for review. The board began systematically reviewing the materials. Every flagged invoice, every deviation, every late-night override lined up perfectly. Tyler's mismanagement, attempts at cover-ups, and misuse of authority were undeniable. He was trapped in his own web, every thread exposed. A knock at the door. The head of security poked her head in. He's attempting contact with vendors via personal devices. I didn't flinch. Document it. Do not engage. All attempts should be logged. Minutes later, Tyler appeared via video call on the conference screen. His face was pale, eyes wide. He tried to speak over the board, voice shaking. This is premeditated. You're manipulating the narrative. The CEO held up a hand. Sit. This is a review, not a debate. He froze, powerless. I stayed silent, letting the evidence do the talking. Each spreadsheet, each timestamp, each mirrored log projected on the screen told the story without emotion. The words weren't mine. They were the record of his own actions. The CFO leaned forward. You were aware of the discrepancies yet failed to report them. Internal compliance has been breached repeatedly. Tyler tried to interject. I didn't authorize this. They're exaggerating. You authorized the invoices, you approved the vendor rates, the overrides on overtime, every missed PTO flag, everything is time-stamped, logged, immutable, I said quietly, precisely. Silence filled the room. Tyler's protests were meaningless against documented truth. The board exchanged looks. Regal whispered confirmations. HR documented the reactions. Security monitored every movement. Finally, the CEO spoke. Tyler, your suspension is effective immediately. You will not have access to company systems. Legal will review any further interactions. Attempts to interfere with operations or staff will be considered violations. Tyler's face fell. No words could reverse the tide. He was exposed, powerless, and finally accountable. I leaned back slightly, calm, precise. I had followed the process. I had anticipated every move, every desperate attempt, every manipulation. Now the board was acting. Integrity had prevailed. Lucas appeared beside me. They're finalizing communications with clients and vendors. PR is under control. Internal systems are secure. Good, I said. Ensure the team follows procedure. No exceptions, no heroics. Document everything. Tyler's video window flickered and went dark. One last attempt at control extinguished. Outside, the office floor buzzed with restrained relief. Employees who had feared him for years finally breathed freely, moving with purpose instead of fear. The CEO turned to me. Alex, you've handled this impeccably. Your documentation, timing, and adherence to procedure have saved the company from a potential disaster. We'll ensure you're recognized internally and protected externally. I nodded. I did what was necessary. The rest is for the company to manage. A final call from legal confirmed whistleblower protection, approvals for my team's overtime reinstated, and the official audit launched. Every domino I'd set in motion had fallen exactly as intended. I walked to the window, looking down at the city streets. Rain had washed the glass towers clean overnight, reflecting light in long, perfect streaks. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside yesterday, but now everything was calm, controlled, accountable. Lucas's text came in quietly. It's done. Tyler's out. Payroll corrected. Team safe. I smiled faintly. Focus on work. Stay calm. For the first time in days, I let myself exhale. I didn't need approval, recognition, or thanks. The chaos had been navigated, the firestorm contained, and the truth exposed. The company would move forward, cleaned, corrected, accountable. And I would remain in the quiet center of it all, composed, precise, untouchable. I packed my bag, checked my laptop one last time, and whispered to myself, everything documented, nothing destroyed, done. As I walked through the lobby, past the security desk, past colleagues who glanced up in cautious acknowledgement, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Calm control. Outside, the city sparkled after rain. Glass towers gleamed. The revolving doors spun silently. Tyler's empire of fear had collapsed quietly, invisibly, and I had survived, intact and unshaken. For the first time, the chaos was truly over.